And joining us now for more on this is Marc Short, longtime advisor to Mike Pence. He's also chief of staff when Pence was vice president. It's good to see you, Marc. So let's start with Ron DeSantis and this big moment that he has this evening. Big moment, big opportunity to connect with voters in Iowa. But this comes on the heels of this Iowa poll showing that he is not denting Trump's support there. First and foremost, when DeSantis said yesterday that polling is never accurate when it comes to the Iowa caucuses, do you agree?
Partially, Kate. I think the reality is that Iowans have a tendency to choose late in the cycle. That you can look back to whether or not that was Barack Obama's surge against Hillary Clinton or whether that was even Rick Santorum or Mike Huckabee's victories. The reality is they do decide late. They like to see somebody who's been in their state. As you know, Ron DeSantis finished touring all 99 counties in Iowa. But I do think that the dynamics are just different in this cycle. The reality is that Republican voters continue to rally around Donald Trump with each successive indictment, and he sort of crowded out the rest of the field. So, yes, I agree that in Iowa, people are late deciders, and the polling is not as significant as other states, but it's still hard to see how you change the trajectory right now.
And I hate giving you credit. Everyone should know, since we have so much fun jabbing each other.
Well, thank you.
I'm playing. But you definitely deserve it. Talking about this poll that we just came out yesterday from the Des Moines Register, which gets at something that you have really been talking about for weeks now, which is the conventional wisdom of when the field shrinks, the polls will narrow, making the Trump alternative stronger. That is not playing out. Do you think that when you see what this Des Moines Register poll, 35 days to the Iowa caucuses, this makes Trump inevitable?
Kate, I don't see what changes the reality that we're probably going to face a rematch of the 2020 election. I think even if you look further into the numbers that Trump is leading among pretty much all demographics, he continues to solidify support. It becomes more and more enthusiastic. And to the first point you made about as the field shrinks, there's a conventional wisdom that would just benefit whoever's opposing Trump. But in particular, if you look at DeSantis' support, if and when he ever gets out, the reality is that most of his support goes back to Trump, not to the rest of the field. I think that's been playing out as Mike Pence exited, Tim Scott exited, others exited. It continues to create this more inevitability that Donald Trump will be the nominee for the Republicans.
We really have been seeing that, Marc. What do you think of what we've just learned this morning of Governor Sununu getting ready to, according to sources, endorse Nikki Haley potentially this evening? He's scheduled to appear with her at an event in New Hampshire. What do you think? What do you think of the endorsement, and what do you think he can do for Nikki Haley?
I don't think the endorsement is that much of a surprise. I think everybody was anticipating this. The question was when he would offer it to Nikki Haley. I think she needed this endorsement. I think it's certainly every candidate in this field would want to get Chris Sununu's endorsement. But the reality is that I think DeSantis is, with Kim Reynolds' endorsement, he has a bigger operation in Iowa. I think he's on track to finish second in Iowa. She needs to have a strong show in New Hampshire. Her biggest competition there for second is probably Chris Christie. And so getting Sununu's endorsement is helpful. But, Kate, again, run it through the table. If DeSantis is second in Iowa, if she's second in New Hampshire, you get to South Carolina, where, by all intents and purposes, it appears that Donald Trump is the strongest of all. And at that point, I sort of feel like we sort of know where this inevitably is going to end up at that point. So I think we're not far off from getting through South Carolina and seeing Donald Trump winning the first three states and every candidate then not really having a path forward. Yeah.
So then let's talk about the hypothetical, becoming less hypothetical rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. You've got strength amongst Republicans, but you've got the new CNN polls that came out also yesterday in Georgia and Michigan showing that Trump is leading Biden in a hypothetical there. But there's also this part of it that I wanted to ask you about. In Georgia and Michigan, when voters were asked about the charges that Donald Trump is facing, if true, 47 and 46% in those states say that it would disqualify Trump to be president. If that is weakness for him, how real do you think that problem is looking ahead?
I think that Donald Trump is always going to be very polarizing. I think the issues around January 6th are polarizing. Candidly, Kate, I think the two biggest issues to watch are the economy. With inflation coming down, I think that the economy has been a huge albatross for Joe Biden. That could change over the next 11 months if actually inflation stays low and you see the markets continue to rally. That's a big dynamic. The second biggest factor, I think, candidly, is the third-party candidates. Donald Trump's support is so polarizing that there's some people who will never leave him. The people who I think were reluctant Republicans who chose Joe Biden in 2020, if they have other avenues because there's more candidates on the ticket and they go there, I think that hurts Joe Biden significantly. And I think there's probably been less coverage of the fact of that dynamic playing out, that third-party candidates, you're not going to really eat into that loyal support for Donald Trump. It eats into more Joe Biden support.
Yeah, the numbers from some of the third-party candidates are really eye-opening, as they have been, at least recently. It's great to see you, Marc. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for having me.